Do you remember the last time you lost a coin? Maybe it slipped out of your pocket, rolled under a vending machine, or just dropped on the pavement and you just left it there. After all, what's a penny worth? Rick Snyder, a retired veterinarian in Florida, thought differently. Over 10 years, he picked up loose change from shopping aisles, vending machines, and even car wash vacuums. In the end, he had more than $21,000, all from coins other people didn't bother to keep. Now, most of us are doing the exact opposite with our money. Instead of picking up spare change, we're letting small amounts slip away every month, forgotten subscriptions, unnecessary fees, and food we throw out. I know they don't feel exactly important in the moment, but over time they add up to the same kind of money Rick collected. And the difference is, his $21,000 was free money while yours is money you've worked hard for. That's why today I'm going to walk you through the most common ways people lose money without even realizing it, and what you can do to stop these small leaks before they turn into a flood. Let's start with something that most of us are guilty of: subscription overload. I was chatting with my friend the other day and he told me that he cut back on dinners and movies because he wanted to save money. Instead, he stayed home, watched his shows, played games, and listened to music. On the surface, it sounds reasonable because it's cheap entertainment, right? But a few months later, he admitted that he still wasn't saving as much. So I asked him whether he knew how many subscriptions he had, and it turned out that he had 11. From Spotify to Netflix to Xbox Game Pass, he was spending around $230 every month. And the biggest issue wasn't the subscription he used, but the ones he wasn't touching at all. He still had this gym app from when gyms were closed back in 2020, and a language learning app that he hadn't opened in 6 months. He even had this streaming service, and I think it was Peacock or something, where he forgot that he signed up for because the charge was so small it went unnoticed. 2 weeks later, after he went through everything, he canceled 6 subscriptions and immediately freed up $100 every month. Now I know that might not sound like a lot, but that's $1,200 a year. And if he invested that at a modest, I don't know, just say 6% interest rates over the next decade, it would have grown to around $16,000. This is why I make it a habit to check my subscriptions regularly. If I'm not actively using a service, I cancel it. It's as simple as that. And if you do the same thing, you might be surprised at how much you can save without even feeling the difference. Next, let's talk about the danger of letting your cash just sit in a low interest account. If you've been following me for a while and you spent a lot of time on this channel, you know that I talk about this all the time. But for some reason, this is still one of the biggest missed opportunities for most people. Imagine you work as a photographer for a magazine. You're great when it comes to creativity, but not as confident in finances. If you can set aside $100 per month, you have pretty much 2 choices. First, you can leave it in a standard savings account with an interest rate of, 0.4% APY, which is around the current US average. Or 2, you can invest that $100 each month into, say, a low-cost S&P 500 ETF, which historically yields about a 10% annual return. If you go the first route, which most Americans do, after 10 years, your total will be roughly $12,300. But if you go the second route and you invest your money over the same period, your money could grow to around $19,300. If you just crunch the numbers, that's a gap of around $7,000, which you can eventually gain just by choosing a better home for your money. And no, you don't have to start big. You can use what I call the $25 rule, where you begin with any amount, like say $50, and then increase the contribution by $25 each month. So month 1 is $75, and then month 2 is $100, and then month 3 is $125, and so on and so forth. Over time, you build momentum and your investment contributions grow as your comfort with saving and earning also grows. Yeah, I get it. I know this sounds pretty intimidating, and when I got started, I worried about making mistakes or even losing money. But I eventually learned how all this investing stuff works, and that's exactly why I run my free beginners investing class to help people who are once just like me. From, say, choosing your first stock to ETF to avoiding common mistakes that every single beginner makes, I cover it all. So if you're that creative photographer, or you're someone who says, I'm just not good with math, I'm not good with numbers, then you're totally going to benefit from this class. I'll leave the link down below if you want to join my class later today. Another common way that people lose money is by agreeing to take on debt with high interest rates. Sometimes, I know, debt is unavoidable. Now, I'm not talking about going into massive credit card debt for unexpected car repairs. Like, you should have an emergency fund for that. This means 3 to 6 months of living expenses saved in a high-yield savings account, so when emergencies happen, you can cover them without resorting to expensive credit card debt. What I'm talking about here is long-term debt, like taking out your first mortgage or a student loan to get a master's degree. Debt like this can help you move forward financially, but the interest rate you pay makes a huge difference in the long run. For example, the average US credit score is around 715. With that score, a lender might offer a personal loan at about 11% APR. However, if you improve your score to, say, 800 or more, you could qualify for a 7% APR on the same loan. The difference might only feel like, $50 to $100 per month, but over a 20-year loan, it can easily add up to over $23,000 in interest savings. Your credit score is a key key to accessing better interest rates, so start working on it now. A simple way to do this is to use a credit card for small purchases and pay it off before interest accrues. For example, I don't know, you might need a new laptop after noticing that your old one starts to lag. If you buy it with your credit card and pay off the full balance as soon as your next paycheck arrives, you will pay zero interest but earn points on your credit score. Listen, the better your credit score, the less you'll pay long-term debt. So start now and you could save tens of thousands of dollars over your lifetime. Next, let's look at something a little outside the box. If you study economics, you probably heard about Adam Smith, the economist/philosopher who introduced the idea of absolute advantage. He believed that countries can produce certain goods more efficiently than others, and that all countries benefit if each focuses on what they're best at. For example, Canada has an absolute advantage in producing lumber because of its huge forests, while Mexico has an absolute advantage in producing avocados thanks to its climate. If Canada tried to grow avocados, it would take far more time and resources. And if Mexico tried to produce lumber at the same scale, it would also cost them a lot more. But when each country focuses on its strength and trades for the other's goods, both end up better off. And I really believe that the same principle applies to your personal finances. You see, you only have 24 hours in a day, so you should spend them on the work that gives you the highest return, and outsource a task that costs you more in lost time than they do in money. In other words, you stand to gain a lot more if you focus on what you're really good at, and then hire people to help you in the areas that you're not so specialized in. For example, I have this lawyer as a friend. He was building his practice after hours, often working until 9 p.m. But after that, he would still have to cook, clean, and even went out this one night at 10 p.m. to mow his lawn. And he was exhausted pretty much all the time. What he didn't realize was that he could have outsourced those tasks and used the extra time and energy to focus on growing his practice, or simply to get more proper rest. Once he hired a cleaner, signed up for a meal delivery plan, and brought in a new gardener, everything changed. Not only did he free up his hours, but he could also focus on the work that mattered most, like building his practice, which carried far more financial upside than mowing his lawn ever could. So here's a practical way to think about it. You want to take your annual income and divide it by the hours you actually work. If you make, I don't know, say $100,000 a year working 40 hours a week, your hourly rate comes out to about $48. If it costs, say, $20 an hour to hire someone to clean your home or handle your yard work, you're financially better off outsourcing it and using that time more effectively. And this doesn't only apply to paid work. Even if you don't spend those extra hours making money, investing them into real rest, learning, or time with your family will often pay off far more than pushing yourself to exhaustion with chores. Valuing your time means treating it like the scarce resource it is, and making sure you're putting it where it actually moves the needle. Another way people lose money is through impulse purchases. Yeah, I know, we've all been there. You're at a farmer's market and you see a jar of jam that you've never tried before, and you think, this doesn't really count. I'll just treat myself. And honestly, there's really nothing wrong with that. I believe that you should enjoy the money that you work hard for. The real problem is when those purchases get ignored. Pretending they don't exist doesn't erase the charge on your card. It just leaves you blind on how much you're actually spending. According to Capital One Shopping, about 36% of Americans say most of their purchases are unplanned. And in 2024, the average consumer spent just under $280 per month on impulse buys. That adds up to over $3,000 a year, which is enough to cover a couple of months of rent, pay down a big chunk of debt, or take a serious vacation. Now, I know you're never going to completely eliminate impulse spending, and you don't have to. A smarter move is to plan for it. Give yourself a set budget each month, say, I don't know, $100 or $150 for unplanned purchases. That way, when you see a chili bacon jam that catches your eye, you can buy it guilt-free because it fits into your fun money bucket. But look, you have to stay accountable. Go through your statements every month and actually record what counted as impulse spending. You might be surprised by how much is actually being spent. For example, I used to justify little purchases like snacks, new shirts, or random tech accessories. None of them seemed like a big deal on their own, but when I finally sat down and added everything up, I realized I was burning through hundreds of dollars every month. That wake-up call forced me to set real limits. These days, I aim to keep impulse spending under $300 a month, and if I go over, I cut it back the following month. Look, you don't need to give up treating yourself, but you need to face the numbers. Because what feels like just a few small splurges can quietly drain thousands from your bank accounts every year. Finally, one of the most overlooked ways people lose money is through food waste. Growing up in Texas and California, my family was extremely frugal when it came to food. Most of our meals came from 99 Ranch Market, things like bok choy, whole chickens, and big bags of rice. My mom made sure that every ingredient was stretched and used while it was still fresh. And leftovers were never thrown away. They were actually tomorrow's lunch or dinner. Basically, for my family, nothing nothing went to waste. But when I moved out on my own, I learned how hard it is to manage food without letting it spoil. Back in college, I got excited one weekend and made a huge pot of chili. It was delicious for the first couple of days, but I made so much that I ended up eating it for breakfast, lunch, and dinner for an entire week. By the end, I was so sick of it and I just couldn't even look at it anymore. Eventually, I figured out a better system. I started meal prepping simple things like chicken, rice, and potatoes. I portion and refrigerate or freeze them so they stay fresh, and I didn't have to cook from scratch every night, and this saved me both time and money. If I had to give my younger self some advice, here's what I would say. First, plan meals before you shop. Write out what you'll eat each day and choose foods that complement each other. For example, you can boil or air fry a whole chicken on Monday, use the meat for sandwiches or rice bowls, then turn the leftover broth into soup later in the week. Second, buy only what you'll actually use. If you just need a few celery sticks for one dish, don't buy the giant pack that will just sit in the fridge and rot. The same goes for bulk herbs and produce. Third, use what's about to expire. You don't necessarily have to toss everything, you can actually get creative. I once had a whole bunch of parsley that was about to go bad, but I just chopped it up and froze it in ice cube trays with olive oil. And later, I was able to use those cubes to flavor soups and pasta. I felt like a lot of these little tricks was able to stretch my groceries a lot further. Now I know that food waste might not seem like a huge deal in the moment, but it does add up. According to the USDA, the average American household throws away about $1,500 worth of food each year. And that's money literally going into the trash that you could be saving, or better yet, investing. Now I hope that some of these tips hit home for you today. Even if you only tackle one or two of these, you'll free up more cash each month than you expect. And if you want to start investing your money like all wealthy people but you don't know how to start, join my class here. See you soon.